So we talked a little bit about investors already, and now let's really think about them. So, let's assume your company, for example purposes, needs $100,000, and you've kind of laid out a plan. You need money for some staffing that you're going to hire, for a little bit of marketing maybe, computer equipment, whatever the case might be. You figure it's $100,000 to launch your company effectively and start generating revenue, and that's fine. Whether it's 100,000 or a million, whatever the number might be. So how do investors see you? So first of all, let's assume you get to the point of being in front of investors. So you've already had to develop a business plan, kind of an investor pitch deck, a financial forecast, and that might all sound daunting, but when you're doing your research and learning how to truly be a true entrepreneur, you're going to learn these things and how to go about it. And certainly you can hire people to help you out. Again, I encourage you to ultimately do them yourself, and then you have personal sort of respect for what you've done in the work, and the numbers actually make sense and they mean something to you. So nonetheless, you have all these tools, you've reached out to investors, and you're at the point of now talking to them. They're going to want to learn about things, again, not just your product, because your product's the cool thing, remember, but that's awesome. But they're going to want to know, who is your team, who's your management team, what's your go-to market strategy, how are you going to take this awesome app that you're developing and turn it into an actual product that's selling out there in the market. How much is it going to cost? How long will the $100,000 last you? These are just questions. I know I'm firing them off quickly, but that's honestly how they're going to come from the investors. They're going to have a lot, and they're going to have a lot more questions than just that. So I encourage you, as you're putting together all these numbers, have answers ready. Think about the things that somebody, if you were lending them $100,000 to pretty much a stranger who just had a cool idea, what questions would you want to ask of them? And that's essentially what you'll be asked from the investors. Now, assuming you get your investment, what's going to happen? So there's two types of investors. There's active and then passive. A lot of smaller investors tend to just be passive. They give you the money and then it's up to you to sort of manage it. A more active investor, like a venture capitalist, is going to want to see reports. They're going to want to see every month, where's the money being spent? Are you on track? Are you spending it the ways you said you would spend it? So there comes quite a burden and an onus when you take someone else's money. Sure, it's helping your company, but just remember, you don't just get it and then spend it freely and do what you want. And this goes back again to sort of those entrepreneurial traits. You don't get to just pigeonhole yourself into building an app and that's it. Now you have responsibilities to other people. So as you're reporting, showing the investors the information they need to see, and then they're going to be looking eventually for an exit. And how do they get their money out? Just so you know, a typical exit, and this is sort of a very broad but a standard, would be investors are looking for 4 to 5 years. They'd like to get their money out of the company, and typically they want 10 times their money. Now that sounds a lot. Someone lent you $100,000, you have to pay them back $1 million. It seems ludicrous, but you have to realize they took a big risk on you, and they're taking big risks on lots of different companies. And a lot of those companies are going to fail, unfortunately. The statistics are basically that out of 10 companies, 5 will completely fail, 4 will pretty much just sort of break even, and then 1 will actually be the superstar. So it's up to you to be the superstar company and turn that 100,000 into $1 million that you can then pay the investors back. So that's a little introduction to investors. There's certainly a lot more that goes into it. So I encourage you to definitely, before you get to the steps where you're actually talking to investors, to learn a lot more about the process. Maybe take some courses, or you read some books on those things, or bring in an expert to help you out. Maybe you already have someone like a CFO, or you could get one who can sort of guide you and be there with you during the process.